your boat captain for today, and my name is going to be Faith. Now we're going to be together for roughly about 30 minutes or so, give or take, but before we get started here today, I want to go over just a few quick safety rules with you. Firstly, there is no standing allowed on board, so please just make sure you remain seated at all times. I want you to keep everything you love inside these wooden rails. Arms, head, shoulders, knees, toes, cell phones, and children within the wooden rails. Now, do try to keep private conversations down to a minimum, but if you have questions for me, feel free to ask those questions. And if you see something funny along the tour, or I say something funny, feel free to laugh out loud, folks. Do not be shy about that, okay? Now, there is no smoking, no vaping, no chewing, and no dipping allowed on board our boats. And then last but not least, if for some reason any of you here today on board, you somehow end up in our San Antonio River, don't worry, we do have life jackets, okay, up underneath my left and right hand hatch doors are those life jackets. But if for some reason we hit an iceberg and we start sinking like the Titanic, don't panic, okay? Instead of us using the life jackets, let's all just stand up, walk out the river, because it's only going to be about 3 to 4 feet deep. And with that, I want to get our tour started. And the first thing I want to talk about is going to be up ahead of us to our left-hand side. This is going to be our La Villita. It's our little village here along the river. Now, back in 1722, this is where the Spanish soldiers stationed at the Alamo had put their settlements. And in the 1800s, there were a lot of French and Germans that had joined them here too. And you can still see that influence those individuals had on this architecture to this very day, because we do have a good handful of those buildings still left standing up there. But nowadays, this La Villita here is going to be our historic art village, where it houses all different types of restaurants, galleries, and shops within. Now, to our left and right hand side, folks, this is going to be our Arneson River Theater. On the left hand side is the seats. It fits about 800 people or so, and the right hand side is the stage. Now, we do host all different types of concerts, shows, and events year-round on this stage, but if any of you on board, if you've ever watched the little movie called Miss Congeniality, they actually filmed the swimsuit scenes for that movie on our Arneson River Theater stage. And what they're setting up for right now is going to be the Day of the Dead Parade that is going to be taking place tomorrow night. Now, up ahead of us to the right-hand side, we are going to be seeing a statue of some longhorns with a cowboy. Now, this statue over here, it does belong to our Briscoe Western Art Museum. But back in the 1930s, the building the Briscoe is in, that was actually our San Antonio Public Library. But by 1968, the city had decided to move our public library, then they turned this building into a circus museum of all things. Stayed open until 2001. But by 2013, the Briscoe opened up. Now inside we house things such as Santa Anna's ceremonial sword, Pancho Villa's last known saddle, as well as a fully restored stagecoach, just to name a few items within. Now right up ahead of us, we are going to be seeing a low-hanging bridge along our river. It's known as our Presa Street Bridge. It was built back in 1890, and this bridge right here, it does come all of the way from Berlin. So this bridge here, it comes from Berlin, Connecticut. Yeah. But this bridge, it is still very unique, okay? There's only 10 of them like this here in our nation, 3 of which reside here, right here in San Antonio. But what makes this bridge so unique is there is no welding involved with it whatsoever. It is held together completely with bolts and rivets. It's what we call a truss bridge. Now, over here on our right-hand side, we're going to see a little angular table with a pair of hands on it. It's going to be known as our Father Bassinet's table. Built in 1991, it's done by a local artist of the name Rolando Prozeno in order to honor and represent the first Catholic Mass held along our river back in the 1600s. Now, that little island it sits upon, it also has a name, and that island is going to be called our Marriage Island because nearly 200 to 300 marriages a year take place there on it because it is naturally in the shape of a heart. Now, this little portion of the river we're traveling through right now, it is going to be known as our Old Mill Crossing, and it's just this little tiny strip of water right here. Now, we call it the Old Mill Crossing because back in the 1800s, that portion of the river behind us was the shallowest point of the river, and it had the most stable riverbed at the time. So that just means back in those days, it was the safest, easiest, and most convenient way for people to cross through the water. Even back in the 1890s, Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders, they had very frequently used that portion of the river in order to make sure they were crossing okay safely. Now, up ahead of us to the left-hand side, we are going to start seeing a tower up here, and at the very tippy top of that building, or that little tower there, is going to be gargoyles overlooking us. Now this building, it's called the Tower Life Building, but when they first built it, it was called a different name, the Smith-Young Building, and it was built by two brothers known as the Smith Brothers. Now those two brothers, they didn't just put gargoyles up at the very top. When we get a little bit closer to the side of the building here, I want everyone to look about 3 to 4 floors above the river level. We're going to be seeing faces lining the side of the wall here. And these faces right here, they are called grotesque faces. Now, the two brothers that originally built the building, they were actually very superstitious individuals. And they believed putting the gargoyles up top and the grotesque faces along the side of the wall here would actually ward away evil spirits and would protect the business from bad luck. But very unfortunately for the two brothers, they made one very fatal error, and they didn't even realize it yet. They had built the building back in 1929. Later in that year, the stock market here, it had crashed and the Great Depression hit. And those brothers who had spent nearly $3 million on the Tower Life, they were forced to sell it. And it is estimated every dollar they put into the building, they only at most got about 10 cents back to the dollar. It was a catastrophic loss. Now over here on our right-hand side, this is going to be our International Center. The building was turned into that International Center back in 1998, and it houses the trade offices between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. But prior to that, it was one of the locations of our San Antonio Public Library. Now up ahead of us is a red brick building. It's called the Bexar County Courthouse. It opened its doors back in 1897, and it's the longest consistently operational courthouse we have here in the state of Texas. But I do want everyone on board to look back behind me. I want you to look at the Tower Life building one last time. You know, a lot of people like to say that the Tower Life, from this angle of the river, kind of looks like an illusion of a boat sailing towards us. And some people even say they hear a boat's horn when you look at the building. Oh, I think I heard that horn. Yeah. Now, the real reason I just honked my boat's horn is we're actually about to go through a two-way portion of our river. So I did so for our safety, in case any boats are coming from the left or right-hand direction. Now, I don't know why my horn sounded exactly like that. Usually it's a little bit louder, but I guess some water had gotten in it at the moment. Now, back behind us is going to be a floodgate known as floodgate number 5. But the thing about floodgate 5 is it's a drop down about 15-20 feet or so we're not going to go down there. This little arch we just went up underneath is also another floodgate. That's our 4th one. And there's a gate beneath the water down there, and it raises from the bottom up. Now this bridge we are approaching right now is going to be known as our Love Lock Bridge. And it is said that if you and your partner, you come up to this bridge and you put a lock on it, and you drop the key or you toss the key into the river, it'll represent that you will be together forever. Now going back to our floodgates and our flood control system, back in 1921 we did not have a flood control here, and we had suffered a catastrophic flood in the city that had caused millions of dollars in property damage, and it killed about 50 people that we knew of. That's when our city decided we were going to build a flood control system, but there wasn't an exact plan for it yet. The city, their original concept of making a flood control was to just pave over the entire horseshoe bend of the river, and they were just going to keep this extension heading straight out into that drop down back there. That was the original plan, but a man by the name of Robert H. Hugman had different ideas, and he came down to the city and presented a plan to not only build a flood control system, but to turn the downtown river into the Riverwalk, to turn it into that economic success that we all know today. Without Robert Hugman, our Riverwalk, as you know, would not have existed. But luckily for us, when he proposed the idea to the city was like, we love the idea, we're totally going to do that instead of paving it over, let's do it. But it was put on hold for about a decade due to the Great Depression, but they finished it up in 1941. Now, if we look over here on our left-hand side, we're going to be looking in between the tree lines up on street level. We're going to be noticing a church up here, or a cathedral, my apologies. This cathedral up here is going to be known as our San Fernando Cathedral, built in 1731. It's done by 16 families that were sent over here on the order of the King of Spain from the Canary Islands. Their whole purpose was to come over here and build that cathedral up there. And to this very day, the ashes of the defenders of the Alamo are held within it. Now this tree we are approaching right now, it's the one straight ahead of us. It's going to be called our Ben Milo's tree, dedicated to a Texas patriot by the name of Benjamin Milo. Now back in 1835, there was a sniper that was at the top of this tree. Ben Milam was somewhere across the river in a courtyard. He was spotted by the sniper. He was then shot and killed. This tree here is going to be a bald cypress tree. Stands at around 90 feet tall or so, and we think it might be one of the oldest, if potentially the oldest, tree left standing along the river. Estimated to be at least around 300 or so years old. Now we're going up underneath our floodgate number 3 right now. The gate is up above us. It jumps from the top down. Now up ahead of us to the right-hand side, we are going to be seeing a sign that says the Esquire Tavern. Now that tavern over there, it opened its doors back in 1933 as a fully stocked bar. But prior to that, that bar over there was actually a barber shop. And then minutes after the Prohibition era ended, the barber shop had somehow opened its doors as a fully stocked bar. Now I'm not exactly sure how that happened, but my theory is they were getting more than a haircut done at that barber shop. Some people might even say a different type of buzz, you don't know what I mean. But if we look over here to our left-hand side, we're going to be seeing chandeliers inside of this building on my left. Now I want you to imagine, back in 1921, when that flood hit us here in the city, those chandeliers were covered in the flood water. That flood had reached 9 feet above the street level. So this street above us right now, 9 feet above that. Now back in those days, that building there, it was known as our CPS building, and you used the electricity bill there. But today, it's used as our jewelry and hotels. Now over here on our right-hand side, this is going to be another one of our boarding locations. It's going to be known as our Aztec Theater, and that's because, well, right over here on our right-hand side is that theater. Now, this opened up back in 1926 as a silent black and white movie theater. It was one of the most popular places to be at that time. But eventually, over the years, with the decline of those types of films, this Aztec Theater fell into disrepair, and it shut down. But luckily for us, we were able to save that building from demolition, and we reopened it up as a concert venue. And that's actually what we still use it for to this very day. We host concerts within it pretty much every single week. But the building right next to it, that little beige one, is going to be known as our Mocava Hotel. It opened its doors in 2003 as a luxury hotel experience, but back in 1901, that building right there was our L. Frank Saddlery, and it was the most popular one here in the nation at its time, making saddles for people like Teddy Roosevelt. Now this bridge we're going up underneath right now, it might just be the most popular bridge along our river. Officially named after Robert Hugman, the architect, most people know this bridge by a different name, and it's going to be our Salinas Bridge. And that's because in 1997, Jennifer Lopez sat on the very top of the bridge behind us in order to film some of the movie scenes for Selena. And some people theorize Selena herself was proposed to on that bridge. But there is no proof that ever happened, okay? It is just speculation due to the movie. But we do at least know without a doubt Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, she was proposed to everywhere else. But if we look over here to our left-hand side, this is going to be our Montchamp Hotel. But back in 1853, this hotel right here was our St. Mary's School for Boys. They had opened up with 100 students. Now, as the years went on, the school grew so prosperous that it eventually outgrew the campus and they had to move. But a former student of the school came back here, purchased the hotel, turned it into that Montchamp, and opened it up by 1968, just in time for the World's Fair. Now, I do want to show everyone on board an optical illusion, and this is going to be an illusion of a paper-thin wall from River Angle. Go to our left-hand side where it says look up. We're going to see that illusion of that paper-thin wall right here, folks. My left hand up. Now, this building right here is going to be known as our Nicks Hospital. Now, the Nicks opened its doors back in 1930, and it was actually the first full-service hospital here, the first full-service hospital here in the nation that offered air conditioning. People like Oliver North and Carol Burnett, they were born in our Nicks. But eventually, by 2019, the hospital had shut its doors. And for quite a long time, the city was debating what we were doing with the building, or what we were going to turn it into. And finally, I kid you not, it's only been a little over a month now, our city set their sights on turning our Nicks Hospital building into an apartment complex. Now, I don't know how I personally feel about living in an apartment where hospital rooms once used to be, but at least they're going to be reusing the building and opening it back up. Now, right up ahead of us is going to be our hotel called the Hyatt Regency. It opened its doors in 1981, and it sits at 16 stories. Now, they originally had plans to build this Hyatt much taller than that. The only problem with that idea is on the other side of this Hyatt here is our Alamo. And if they were to have built it any taller than you see that today, it would have casted a shadow upon the Alamo. And that is not allowed here. No matter what, no building around our Alamo is ever permitted to cast a shadow on it. So instead, they built this hotel here wider rather than taller. Now, to my right-hand side over here, we're going to be seeing a sign that says Saltgrass. Now, the building the Saltgrass is in, it does have a name, and that's actually going to be our Casino Club building. Yeah, but don't get too excited, okay, folks? No, it's not a casino, and it has never even once been a casino despite the name. Actually, back in 1927, this building here was a private club for the German settlers who came here at the time. They had wanted a place where they could come and gather with other Germans, so that's what they did. Nowadays, however, bottom 2 floors of the Saltgrass, and the floors up above it is an apartment complex. Now, this portion of the river we're traveling through right now, it is going to be known as our restaurant row. And that's because the majority of our restaurants here along our river, they're condensed into this area. Now, we do have a whole bunch of different food options through here, folks. There's Tex-Mex, Mexican, barbecue, Tex-Mex, Italian, Tex-Mex. We are in Texas after all. We got a lot of Tex-Mex down here. But if that's not what you're looking for, we have plenty of other options too. But if that is what you're looking for, well, you're in luck. There's plenty of options to choose from. Now, over here to our right-hand side, back in 1941, when they completed the construction of the Riverwalk, Robert Hugman, that architect, he put his office over here on our right-hand side, right on river level. We can see his name on the building here. It says Robert Hugman, AA Architect. There's also a little statue of Robert's bust on our right-hand side too. Now, the reason Robert had decided to put his office right down here on the river is, well, what better way to convince people to bring their businesses down to our newly built Riverwalk than just putting your office here yourself, right? You set a good example for other people to follow. And luckily for us, this restaurant here along our river to offer riverside dining opened its doors. Over here on our right-hand side with these rainbow-colored umbrellas known as Café Rio opened up. Now back in those days, not only were you being fed by this restaurant here, you were getting your boat tour from them too, because they were the original individuals who used to own the gondola boats here along the river. They're kind of the ones who pioneered the concept behind it. And to this very day, this restaurant here, it's still family owned and operated. Now, so far during our tour here today, we have been in the natural river and we just built the river walk around it. But now that we're taking this left-hand turn here, we're entering a completely man-made portion of our river. And we built this part of the river back in 1968 for the World's Fair. Now this World's Fair, it was going to be a very big deal for us here in San Antonio. And it was going to bring down thousands upon thousands of new tourists to the area. So we wanted a quick, convenient, and easy way to connect the World's Fair grounds into the main river walk bed. And what better way to do so than just using the river itself? So they extended the river further up towards where the World's Fair was being held back then. So that's why this part of the river we're in right now exists. Now it is still a very shallow portion of our river, don't worry. It's only about 4 or 5 feet deep, and it is mostly all concrete bottom. Now up ahead of us to the left-hand side, we're going to see a sign that says, up ahead of us to the left-hand side, we're going to be seeing a hotel up ahead of us called the Marriott River Center. Now this Marriott opened its doors back in 1988, but originally right where it sits was a very historic Fairmont Hotel. Now Fairmont was built back in 1906. Now I know what you might think, why bring up a Fairmont Hotel if it is not there today? They must have just destroyed it and built the Marriott, right? But that's actually not what happened. Our city said that there was no way we would ever let the Fairmont be destroyed, and the Marriott would have to come up with some other plan. So in 1985, they did. They devised an entire plan to pick up the entire Fairmont Hotel and move it. They placed it on 36 dollies, all with roughly about 8 wheels each, and with tow trucks, slowly rolled the entire hotel to a new location, where it still sits at today as an operational and functional hotel. That way the Marriott could be built right where it wanted to, and the Fairmont Hotel would be safe away from demolition. Now, right up ahead of us is going to be a statue of a lady holding a star. She's going to be known as our stargazer. The newest addition here along our river, put here in 2022, she's done by a Mexican sculptor by the name of Pedro Reyes. Now, she's made of pure volcanic stone from Mexico, and her name, the Stargazer, was given to her because she was built to represent all of the indigenous people of the past. They gazed at the same stars we still gaze at today.
The one I was trying to find. Oh, really? Yeah.
Now, up ahead of us to the right-hand side, off in the distance, we're going to be seeing a tall tower. And this tower over here is going to be known as our Tower of the Americas, built in 1968 for the World's Fair. This tower up here was the spectacle for the fair, because we had decided as a city we were going to build the tallest tower here in the nation in order to wow all those people traveling down for the fair. And at the time, we succeeded. It's 750 feet tall. This Tower of the Americas was the tallest in the U.S. up until they built the Las Vegas Stratosphere. Then we were knocked down to second place. That's okay, we're still holding second place position. And it is a giant observation deck, a slowly rotating restaurant beneath the observation deck floor. And there's also a 4D movie theater on the ground floor. Now, right up ahead of us is going to be our convention center. It's known as our Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center, named after the first Mexican-American to serve in the House of Representatives from 1961 to 1999. To our left-hand side over here is going to be our the Cockrell Theater, named after the first female mayor elected here in San Antonio. She was elected back in 1975, served 3 consecutive terms, and is one of only 2 female mayors we've had here so far in the city. Now, attached to that theater is going to be a mosaic, known as our Confluence of Civilizations, made up of over 400,000 different naturally colored stones from Mexico. They use those natural stones up there to make sure the color won't fade from it. That way, hopefully, it'll be standing there for a long time to come. Now, the name, the Confluence of Civilizations, it actually comes from the 1968 World's Fair, because that was the theme for that fair. The Hemisphere World's Fair back then, both the theater and this convention center were built for it, so they built that mural in order to honor that, which represents all civilizations over time coming together as one. Now we are going to be doing a little U-turn right here. I'm going to be turning my boat around. We're going to go back the way we just came through. But while I do so, I want to talk about a common question we get asked along the river. Might be one of the most important questions of all. How many people a day on average accidentally fall into our river? Now we do estimate that about 2 to 3 people a day accidentally fall into the San Antonio River. But I've been down here over 3.5 years, and I have not seen that happen myself. Now I have seen people accidentally drop cell phones, car keys in the river, then they jump in after them, but never someone accidentally falling in themselves. But just because I haven't seen it, it doesn't mean that it won't happen, okay, and that it doesn't. There's coworkers I have that have seen people fall in the river, and I have coworkers who they themselves and ones who have fallen in the river too. But speaking of people working on the tours accidentally ending up in our river, your boat captain here today behind the wheel is also no exception to this. I have also very unfortunately found myself in the San Antonio River by accident. I accidentally fell in about 5-6 months ago. I'll tell you a short version of my story because it's kind of funny, alright? Right up underneath me there's a little hatch door where the prop of the boat is. They left it open after maintenance and I didn't look where I was walking, so I just walked right into it, fell through it into the river beneath me. That's how I ended up in the water. Yeah. Now, I do want to talk about another form of artwork here along our river, and that's actually going to be the boats we are on right now. We have about 5 different boat designs with different names and meanings, and this boat we're on here today is going to be known as our Salute to Military boat, and that's to honor the fact we are a military city. We have a sun boat because we get about 300 days a year on average up here sunshine here in San Antonio, a dove boat for peace, a missions boat for our 5 missions, and then also our Tri-Sentinel boat. Now the Tri-Sentinel boat is our city's 300th year anniversary boat, built back in 2017 when these new boats were being built. Sorry, I gotta make sure we don't see these cameras. Now, back in 2017, not only did we build new boat designs, we also made the decision to switch from gas-powered boats to electric boats. So not only did we make new designs for the boats, we switched what powered us as well. So all of the tour boats here along the river you see here today, as long as they are owned by Go Rio, they are purely powered by electricity. Now to our right-hand side and between the palm trees here, we're going to be seeing a statue of a man by the name of Saint Anthony de Padua, and he is actually depicted holding a baby Jesus. Now this statue over here was gifted to us back in 1968 from Portugal for our World's Fair. Now the reason Portugal gifted us that statue is that's actually where the saint originated from. Now what ended up happening is this individual, he came to the city before he was a saint and he held a feast along it. And then when he became a saint, they decided to name the river after him, which is St. Anthony the San Antonio River. And then they named our city after that. So that's actually how we get our name here. It's from St. Anthony, San Antonio. Now if we look over here to our right right-hand side, we're going to be looking up on street level. We're going to see a church steeple up here, which belongs to our St. Joseph Catholic Church. Now, this Catholic church over here, it opened its doors back in 1868, and it's actually where the German immigrants at the time came in order to worship in their native language, German. And to this very day, in order to honor that lineage, once a month inside that church up there, they still host an all-male choir that sings in German to this very day. Now, along the tour here, we've actually brought up the Germans in a couple different areas, and that's because there is a portion of our San Antonio history where we were predominantly populated by Germans here. Around in the 1800s or so, we had a lot of them immigrate here to San Antonio. Well, to Texas in general, but a majority of them settled down here in San Antonio and New Braunfels. That's actually why when you go up on a street level here in the city, you see a good handful of streets named after German words. Because those were the individuals who first settled in those areas of our city and named those streets. I just think it's a pretty interesting fact here about San Antonio that most people don't realize. But going back to the World's Fair, or well, 9 months prior to the World's Fair happening here in San Antonio, our city realized, rather delayed, that there was going to be a lot of people down here traveling for that World's Fair. So our city, they had put up an ad asking could anyone potentially build a 500-room hotel in 9 months. They needed the hotel completely ready and opened in time to use for the World's Fair. And a man by the name of H.B. Zachary was up for that challenge. He'd even told the city if for some reason he couldn't finish the hotel in time, he would sell whatever he had done to the building to us for only $1. So they started construction on this little hotel. It's gonna be right up ahead of us on the left-hand side of the river once I turn the boat to the left here. It's gonna be the hotel right across from where I picked you all up at, known as our Hilton Palacio del Rio, our palace on the river. Now they built this hotel by building the main base 4 floors right here on river level, as well as the elevator shaft. But each individual room above the first 4 floors were all built on a site south from here, individually as fully furnished rooms. They had pre-put everything inside the rooms up there, from the bed frames to the sheets, the mattress, tables, TV, lamps, any of it. And all of it was already in the rooms up there before they were driven over here on flatbed trucks, lifted up with giant cranes, and then they stacked them one on top of one another. You know, like you would a Lego block set. Now they call that construction method over here modular construction. And our Hilton, it actually holds the Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest hotel built of its size to date. 9 months to build it. And it only took them 202 working days, which is only about 7.5 months, to complete the entire Hilton here. That's pretty impressive if y'all ask me. But we are coming to the end of our tour here today, everyone. I want you all just to remain seated for me for a moment while I dock my boat over here to the right-hand side. Look around you to make sure what you brought on board with you today, you have with you when you get off board. And then last but not least, folks, if you enjoyed the tour here today, it is going to be allowed, accepted, and appreciative for you to tip your boat captain if you think I've done a job well done. There's also a Cash App and a Venmo if y'all don't have cash with you on the tip jar up here. But other than that, if any of you on board, if you do have questions for me, feel free to ask. But thank you all so much for joining me along my tour, and I do hope you all have a great rest of your day here in the sea. Thank you all so much for joining.